The auditorium doors slammed shut with finality that echoed like a judge's gavel. Elise Foster sat frozen in her wheelchair outside, hands trembling, watching through glass panels as stage lights warmed to gold inside. Her Dalmatian, Maestro, pressed his spotted head against her knee. Someone had locked every entrance, trapping her outside her own performance slot. Would Elise and Maestro accept having their music buried here, or will they do everything in their power to save the upcoming performance? Before we continue, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Elise had learned early that dreams weighed more when you carried them from a wheelchair. At 68, she understood this with the clarity only decades could provide. Her fingers, gnarled with arthritis, but still nimble on piano keys, rested in her lap like birds too tired to fly. The Riverside Community Talent Show wasn't Carnegie Hall, just a modest theater attached to the senior center. But for Elise, it meant everything. For 40 years, she'd taught piano to children who couldn't afford lessons, watching them succeed, while her own performance dreams gathered dust. This competition represented proof that she still mattered, that her music could still move hearts. Maestro had been with her 7 years, a rescue dog abandoned for being too energetic. Elise saw what others missed, loyalty that ran bone deep, intelligence sparkling behind dark eyes, an uncanny ability to sense when her spirit faltered. He'd learned to open doors, retrieve dropped items, somehow always knew when her chronic pain flared. The competition had drawn 15 contestants, mostly retirees, showcasing hobbies turned passions. Then there was Chloe Powell. Chloe had arrived 6 months ago with designer luggage and impressive credentials. Former concert violinist, she claimed, retired from a prestigious orchestra. She played beautifully, technically perfect, but Elise heard what others didn't. Music that lacked soul, performed by fingers that had forgotten why they'd first fallen in love with melody. They'd been friendly until the preliminary round 3 weeks ago, when Elise's improvised jazz piece earned a standing ovation, while Chloe's flawless Bach received polite applause. Elise noticed how Chloe's smile tightened, how her compliments arrived wrapped in barbs. "Charming performance," Chloe had said, voice smooth as silk over razors. "So brave to improvise when precision fails." Maestro had growled softly when Chloe approached. Dogs knew things people often missed. 3 days before the finals, Elise's practice keyboard broke. Middle C stuck, then other keys followed. She'd wept that night from the crushing weight of timing. Chloe appeared the next morning, offering her personal electric piano. "I insist," she'd said, brushing aside protests. "We artists must support each other." Elise accepted, grateful, ignoring how Maestro positioned himself between them, ears flattened. She practiced 2 days on Chloe's piano, fingers adapting to keys that felt slightly different. She'd adjusted, as she always did, pouring her heart into preparation. Competition morning arrived with purpose, singing through Elise's veins. She dressed in the emerald blouse her daughter had sent, the one that made her feel regal. Maestro wore his service vest, freshly brushed. They arrived early, greeting friends with genuine warmth. Chloe was already there, dressed in black like she was attending a funeral. She'd smiled, wished Elise luck, then disappeared backstage. Elise drew number 7, middle of the pack. Chloe drew 13. Everything seemed perfect until Elise approached the auditorium entrance 30 minutes before her performance. The doors were closed. Locked. She tried every entrance, all sealed. Panic fluttered in her chest. Through glass panels, she saw people settling into seats, completely unaware a performer was trapped outside. Her phone showed no signal in this corner's dead zone. Someone had done this deliberately. Someone with access had sealed every entrance, trapping her outside her own performance. But the betrayal went deeper than locked doors, and the truth waiting to surface would shake everything she'd worked for. Elise raced from door to door, each one mocking her with sealed finality. Maestro trotted beside her, the only thing keeping her from complete panic. Through glass, she watched performers finish to enthusiastic applause. She pounded on windows, but distance and angle meant no one inside could see her. She was invisible, voiceless, exactly what someone had intended. Her phone still showed no signal. Administrative offices were closed on weekends, corridors dark and empty. The parking lot spread empty before her. Time was bleeding away. 20 minutes until her slot, then 15, then 10. Maestro suddenly barked, sharp and urgent, then grabbed her blouse hem gently and pulled. Elise looked down, confused. He released her, moved to a nearby window, pawing insistently. The window was old, opening outward on hinges, but it sat 4 feet off the ground, too high for her wheelchair. Even if she opened it, how would she get through? Maestro barked again, more urgently. Elise wheeled closer, reached up, straining. Her fingertips just brushed the window latch. Unlocked, carelessly left that way. Her watch showed 5 minutes until her performance. Understanding crystallized, cold and sharp as winter ice. This wasn't random. This was calculated, deliberate, surgical in its cruelty. Someone who knew her schedule, knew her limitations, knew exactly how to eliminate her from competition without leaving obvious evidence. Chloe, the borrowed keyboard. Elise's mind raced backward. How Chloe had insisted she practice on that specific piano. How she'd asked detailed questions about Elise's performance time. How she'd volunteered to help coordinate backstage logistics. Chloe had access. Chloe had motive. Chloe had opportunity. Rage and grief warred in Elise's chest. But beneath both ran determination. She'd survived too much to be stopped by locked doors and calculated cruelty. She looked at Maestro, who watched her with unwavering faith. A wild idea formed, impossible and desperate, but possibly, maybe, just barely feasible. "We're not done yet," she whispered. But what she was about to attempt would require trust beyond reason, and even if they succeeded, the truth waiting inside would cut deeper than any locked entrance ever could. Elise's hands moved with practiced efficiency. She stripped the silk scarf from her neck and tied it around Maestro's vest. Creating a makeshift harness extender, her plan was insane. But desperation bred creativity, and Elise had learned that impossible just meant no one had tried hard enough yet. She positioned her wheelchair at an angle, calculating trajectories with mathematical precision. "Up," she commanded, pointing to the window ledge. Maestro had never performed this trick, never been asked to jump so high with such purpose. But he didn't hesitate. He gathered his haunches and leaped, powerful despite advancing age. His front paws caught the ledge. He scrabbled briefly, then pulled himself up, balanced precariously. "Push," Elise said, reaching up to guide. Maestro turned carefully and pressed his shoulder against the window. It resisted, stuck from disuse. Then, with a groan of protesting hinges, it swung outward. Cool air rushed in. Carrying muffled applause, someone had just finished performing. "Down," Elise commanded. Maestro jumped back beside her, waiting for the next instruction. This was where her plan turned from improbable to impossible. She couldn't climb through the window, and her wheelchair couldn't fit through it either. Unless. Elise's fingers flew to her wheelchair's quick-release mechanisms. Footrests detached first, then armrests. She tossed the seat cushion through the window, hearing it land with a soft thump. The frame folded, designed for transport, and she collapsed it now, working against trembling hands. She dragged the folded wheelchair to the window, maneuvering it through the opening at awkward angles. She pushed it through, praying it wouldn't damage anything. The crash echoed inside, but no one investigated. Now came the truly impossible part. Elise positioned herself close to the window, arms straining upward. She hooked her arms over the ledge, feeling sharp wood bite into her forearms. Her upper body strength, built from years of wheelchair use, allowed her to pull herself partially up, but she couldn't get the leverage needed. "Push," she commanded, adding a word from his training. "Support." Maestro moved behind her wheelchair and did something remarkable. He pressed his solid body against the chair's back, using his weight to provide the base she needed. Elise felt the difference immediately, the added stability allowing her to pull harder, to gain inches. Her shoulder muscles screamed. Decades-old injuries flared with pain. But she pulled, inch by agonizing inch, until her torso was through the window, her legs dragging behind. Maestro barked, urgent. She understood. She was stuck, balanced precariously with no way to propel herself forward. "Jump," she commanded. "Through. Come." Maestro backed up and leaped. His body sailed through the window above her, twisting mid-air to clear her, landing inside with a heavy thud. Then his head appeared in front of her. He grabbed the silk scarf tucked into her collar and pulled. Not hard enough to choke, but with steady pressure that, combined with her efforts, gave her the final leverage. Elise tumbled through in a graceless heap, landing on the corridor floor. For a moment she lay there, breathing hard, body a map of pain and triumph. Then Maestro was licking her face, whining softly, tail wagging. She laughed, bordering on hysteria, and wrapped her arms around him. Good boy. Such a good, brilliant boy. She pulled herself to where her collapsed wheelchair had landed. Her shaking hands worked to reassemble it. Finally, the frame clicked into place. She hauled herself in, movements lacking practiced grace. Seat cushion down, footrests reattached, armrests secured. Through walls, she heard the MC announcing the next performer. One more act before hers. Elise wheeled forward, Maestro at her side, navigating unfamiliar corridors toward backstage. Her blouse was torn, arms bleeding, hair escaped from careful arrangement. She looked like she'd fought a battle, but she was inside, and she was moving, and she was going to perform. What Elise didn't know was that Chloe's sabotage extended beyond locked doors, and the true depth of betrayal was about to be revealed in front of everyone. The backstage area hummed with controlled chaos. Elise wheeled through the entrance, Maestro tight against her side, and sudden silence fell like a dropped curtain. All eyes turned to her torn blouse, bleeding arms, disheveled hair. Shock rippled through the gathered performers. "Elise!" Event coordinator Jennifer rushed forward, face concerned. "My God, what happened? We've been calling your number." "The doors were locked," Elise said, voice carrying despite exhaustion. "All of them. I was trapped outside." Jennifer's confusion looked genuine. "That's impossible. I checked them before we started. They were locked 20 minutes ago," Elise interrupted, gaze sweeping the room, landing on Chloe Powell, who stood in the corner, violin case clutched to her chest, face carefully neutral. "Someone made sure I couldn't get inside." Chloe's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "That's a serious allegation," Jennifer said carefully. "Do you have proof?" Elise didn't. Just locked doors mysteriously open now, circumstantial evidence, and gut instinct. "I'm here now," Elise said, straightening despite pain. "Can I still perform?" Jennifer glanced at her clipboard. "You missed your slot, but we can put you at the end. After me," Chloe interjected smoothly, stepping forward with practiced concern. "Poor Elise, this must have been traumatic. Perhaps you should go home. Rest? The competition isn't worth injuring yourself further." The kindness in her voice was poisoned honey. "I'll perform," Elise said flatly. "After everyone else, if necessary." Jennifer nodded, relieved to avoid confrontation. We'll slot you in after Chloe." The next 40 minutes passed like fever dream. Elise sat in the wings, watching performers, hearing applause rise and fall. Her arms throbbed. Her hands shook. Chloe performed third from last, playing Vivaldi's Winter with technical perfection. Each note rang clear and cold, precisely executed, emotionally vacant. The audience applauded warmly, respectful, if not enthusiastic. When Chloe returned backstage, she passed Elise without speaking, but her eyes held satisfaction. Then Elise's turn arrived. She wheeled onto stage, Maestro walking beside her. The audience reacted visibly to her appearance. Whispers rippled through seats. She knew what they saw, a battered woman who'd crawled through hell to be here. The piano waited at center stage, spotlit. Elise positioned her wheelchair, made minute adjustments. Maestro settled at her feet. The audience slowly quieted. Elise closed her eyes and began to play. The composition that flowed from her fingers was the one she'd written 40 years ago, inspired by her husband's final words. But something was different now. The notes carried new weight, forged in the crucible of everything that had happened. Each chord held defiance and grace simultaneously. Fury and forgiveness braided together. She played through pain, through exhaustion, through knowledge of betrayal. She played for every locked door she'd faced in 68 years, for every person who'd seen her wheelchair before her humanity. Then, in the middle section, she heard something wrong. A note stuck. Then another. The middle register began failing, keys lagging, creating discordant gaps. Panic fluttered. This was the competition piano, perfectly maintained. It shouldn't be malfunctioning. Unless, understanding hit like cold water. The borrowed keyboard, Chloe's insistence that Elise practice on her piano for 2 days, the subtle differences in touch sensitivity. Chloe hadn't just locked her out. She'd sabotaged Elise's muscle memory, trained her fingers to expect different response times, ensuring that even if Elise somehow performed, it would be compromised. The sabotage was elegant, nearly invisible, dismissible as nerves or aging hands. But Elise knew. Maestro whined softly, touching her ankle. "Keep going," his pressure seemed to say. Elise gritted her teeth and adapted. She shifted her playing style mid-performance, compensating for stuck keys, improvising around damaged sections. If she couldn't play it as written, she'd play it as it needed to be heard. Imperfect, damaged, but unbroken. The music that emerged was raw and ragged in places, but somehow more honest because of it. She finished with a chord that rang through the auditorium clear and true. Silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then the audience rose in waves, and the applause that followed was thunderous, cathartic, the sound of people recognizing truth. Elise sat at the piano, tears streaming freely down her face. She'd finished. Despite everything, she'd finished. But as she wheeled off stage, she saw Chloe standing in the wings, and the expression on the other woman's face made Elise's blood run cold. There was no shame, no regret, only cold calculation and satisfaction. Because Chloe's sabotage had one final act, and the betrayal about to be revealed would make everything before seem like preparation. The judges' deliberation took 30 minutes. Performers gathered backstage, tension thick. Elise sat apart, Maestro's head heavy on her lap, torn sleeves covered by borrowed cardigan. Chloe stood across the room, speaking in low tones, with a woman in expensive clothes who didn't look like she belonged at a community talent show. Finally, Jennifer appeared. "If everyone could gather on stage, please. The judges are ready." They filed out. Elise wheeled to her spot near the edge. Chloe positioned herself center, already standing as if expecting victory. The head judge, Dr. Harrison, a local music professor, approached the microphone. "This year's competition has been challenging. We've witnessed remarkable talent, genuine passion, and unfortunate circumstances that have made our decision complicated. Elise's stomach tightened. The stuck keys, her damaged performance, visible evidence of struggle would be used to justify placing her lower, despite the audience's reaction. Third place goes to Edmund for his sleight of hand demonstration. Applause. Edmund beamed, accepting his ribbon. Second place goes to... The auditorium doors burst open. The sound echoed like a gunshot. A man strode down the aisle, expression urgent, followed by two others in maintenance uniforms. "Wait," the man called. "Please, wait. This is important." Jennifer hurried to intercept him. "Sir, we're in the middle of announcements." "I'm David, building maintenance supervisor," the man said, voice carrying to the stage. "I need to speak immediately. It's about the locked doors." Silence crashed over the auditorium. Elise felt her heart hammer. Beside her, Chloe shifted, sudden tension emanating from her. Dr. Harrison frowned. "Can this wait?" "No," David said firmly. He climbed onto stage uninvited. 3 hours ago, I received an anonymous call claiming there was a gas leak in the auditorium corridors. I immediately activated emergency lockdown protocol, which seals all doors. That's why they were locked. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Elise gripped her wheelchair arms. "But there was no gas leak," David continued, expression grim. "The call was fake. Someone deliberately triggered lockdown knowing it would trap people outside. Security footage shows who activated the emergency call box." He pulled a tablet from his bag and turned it to face the audience. Security video played, grainy but clear. It showed Chloe Powell walking deliberately to an emergency call box, looking around to ensure she was alone, then activating it. The timestamp read 1:17 p.m., 30 minutes before Elise's scheduled performance. The auditorium erupted. Voices rose in shock and outrage. Jennifer rushed forward, face pale. The judges conferred urgently. Chloe's face went white, then red. That's not... "There's more," David interrupted, voice hard with anger. "After reviewing footage, I checked other recordings. Yesterday evening, this same woman was seen entering the auditorium alone. Security logs show she used a borrowed staff key card to access the competition piano. Footage shows her tampering with it." He played another video. Grainy, shot from a high corner, but unmistakable. Chloe at the competition piano, tools in hand, working methodically on its internal mechanisms for nearly 20 minutes. Elise's breath stopped. Her damaged hands that had struggled with stuck keys, that had fought through compromised performance. It hadn't been her fault. It had been deliberate sabotage. Chloe had not only locked her out, but ensured that even if she performed, she'd fail. The cruelty struck Elise like a physical blow. This wasn't competition. This was systematic destruction. "This is absurd." Chloe's voice cut through rising chaos, shrill with desperation. "I would never... I'm a respected musician." "No, you haven't," came another voice from the audience. The well-dressed woman who'd been speaking with Chloe stood, expression cold. "Chloe Powell is not your real name. I'm Rebecca Walsh, reporter investigating arts fraud. Chloe Powell is actually Chloe Stern, and you've never performed with any orchestra. You've been moving through senior centers and community competitions across 3 states, using fake credentials and sabotaging competitors to win modest prizes." She held up her phone, showing news clippings and documents. "You're wanted for questioning in at least 4 other incidents of competition sabotage, including one where a cellist was injured when his instrument was tampered with." Elise felt dizzy. This wasn't just about winning. This was a pattern, a predator targeting vulnerable performers. Chloe's facade cracked completely, her face contorted with rage and contempt. "You people," she spat, looking around at gathered performers. "You amateurs with your little dreams and pathetic skills. You don't deserve recognition. You deserve to be forgotten." The words landed like stones. Elise watched this woman she'd trusted reveal herself as someone who'd seen vulnerability and chosen cruelty. "Why?" Elise asked, voice quiet but carrying. "Why hurt people who only wanted to share joy?" Chloe's eyes found Elise's, and genuine emotion flickered there. "Because I failed," she said, voice bitter. "I failed when it mattered, and the world moved on. If I can't have real success, why should any of you have even small victories?" The confession was stark, tragic, utterly devoid of remorse. Security arrived then, called by David when he'd discovered evidence. Chloe was escorted out, still protesting, voice fading as doors closed behind her. In the aftermath, silence settled again, heavier with the weight of what had been revealed. Dr. Schwarb Harrison returned to the microphone, expression troubled, but resolved. "Given these circumstances, the judging committee has deliberated. Elise Foster's performance, accomplished despite systematic sabotage and under conditions that would have defeated most performers, represents not only technical skill, but extraordinary determination. First place goes to Elise Foster." The applause that erupted was deafening. People stood, not politely but fiercely, celebrating not just music, but survival, not just skill, but courage to continue creating despite those who would destroy. Elise sat in her wheelchair, Maestro pressed against her legs, and wept, not from relief or victory, but from overwhelming understanding that she hadn't just won a competition. She'd survived an attempt to silence her, and the music had won anyway. 3 months passed. The community center's rehearsal room smelled of coffee and aging wood, afternoon light spilling through windows. Elise sat at her familiar practice piano, hands moving through scales with practiced ease. Maestro dozed beneath the bench. The prize money had gone toward instrument repairs for her students. Local recognition brought more. Piano donations, volunteers offering to teach alongside her, a waiting list of students hungry for instruction from the woman who'd climbed through a window rather than surrender her music. But the real change went deeper than external validation. The door opened, and Jennifer entered with a teenage girl Elise didn't recognize. The girl walked hesitantly, shoulders hunched in defensive vulnerability. "Elise, this is Willow," Jennifer said gently. "She's been asking about piano lessons." She heard about what happened at the competition. Willow spoke quietly, eyes on the floor. "My mom says I'm too old to start learning, says I missed my chance. But I saw the video of you playing, after everything, and I thought maybe it's not about when you start. Maybe it's about not giving up." Elise's throat tightened. She gestured to the piano bench. "Come sit. Tell me what you want to learn." As Willow hesitantly approached, Elise caught Jennifer's eye. They'd had this conversation before, about students who arrived carrying more than musical inexperience, students bearing wounds from failures, and voices that told them they were too late, too broken, too different to deserve beauty. "Before we start," Elise said gently as Willow settled beside her, "I need to tell you something important." Willow looked up, guarded. "Music isn't about perfection," Elise continued. "It's not about erasing mistakes or pretending struggles didn't happen. Real music carries those imperfections with it. They're not flaws. They're proof you lived through something and chose to create anyway." She placed her scarred, arthritic hands on the keys. "Every mark here tells a story. Every note I play remembers them. That's what makes it honest." Willow's defensive posture softened. "I'm scared I'll be bad at it." Elise smiled. "Good. Being scared means you care. Now, put your hands here." As they began the lesson, Elise felt Maestro shift beneath the bench, his presence steady. Through the window, she could see the competition auditorium in the distance. She'd received letters from 2 other communities where Chloe had sabotaged competitors. Both wanted her to speak, to share her story, to help other artists understand they weren't alone. She'd agreed. Understanding her story wasn't just about her anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd been told they weren't good enough, everyone who'd faced locked doors and kept searching for windows, everyone sabotaged by people too hurt to witness someone else's joy. Chloe had been charged with multiple counts of property destruction. In one letter, forwarded through lawyers, she'd written, "I hope you're satisfied." Elise had written back, "I'm not satisfied. I'm heartbroken for you. You confused destroying others with healing yourself. I hope someday you learn the difference." She'd meant it. The anger had faded, leaving something more complex. Grief for talent, twisted into cruelty. She didn't forgive the harm done, but understood that hurt people. And the cycle only ended when someone chose compassion over revenge. As Willow's fingers fumbled through her first scale, Elise guided her gently, correcting without criticism, encouraging without false praise. This was her true gift. Not just playing music, but teaching others they deserved to create it, despite every voice saying otherwise. That evening, Elise sat alone in her apartment, composition notebook open. She hadn't written new music in decades, content to teach others compositions. But something was stirring now, a melody born from everything that had happened. Her pen moved across the page, notes taking shape. This piece wouldn't be perfect. It would carry scars and improvisation, moments where melody broke and reformed differently. It would be honest. Maestro watched from his bed, and Elise glanced at him. "What should we call it?" He tilted his head, and Elise laughed. "You're right. The song that wouldn't be silenced." Perfect. As she wrote through the evening, the music took shape as a piece for piano and students, something carrying the lesson within the notes. That beauty survives attempts to destroy it. That locked doors only matter if you stop looking for windows. That the most powerful act of defiance is continuing to create when someone tried to silence you. Outside, the city settled into night. Somewhere, other artists faced their own locked doors, their own saboteurs, their own moments of choosing between surrender and survival. Elise couldn't reach them all, but her story could. And maybe, in hearing it, they'd find courage to keep creating, to keep climbing through impossible windows, to remember that music belongs to everyone willing to play it honestly. The competition had ended, but the song continued. It always would, carried forward by every person who refused to let cruelty have the final note, by every student who started lessons thinking they were too late and learned it otherwise, by every locked door that led to an open window. Elise played the new melody softly, her scarred hands finding grace in imperfection, and Maestro's tail thumped gentle rhythm against the floor. This was victory. The quiet choice to create beauty despite everything, to teach others they could too, to transform pain into purpose and cruelty into compassion. The song that wouldn't be silenced wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been told they weren't enough and chose to play anyway. And in apartments and practice rooms across the city, that song was already spreading, carried forward by hands that refused to stop creating, by hearts that remembered music, survives when we refuse to let it die. Elise closed her notebook, kissed Maestro's spotted head, and turned off the light. Tomorrow would bring new students, new lessons, new chances to share the truth she'd learned through locked doors and open windows. That the most beautiful songs are always the ones that almost weren't sung, but were anyway. If this story touched something in you, hit that like button and share it with someone you want to hear with. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss another story.